When the Colts rested their starters, you might have been caught off guard. No more. We are going to help you out. This is Stardom Sit-em. Welcome to you. I'm Lauren Shehadi. Alongside Jamey Eisenberg, this video brought to you by Norton, because every click matters. This is the last video of the year.
Did Dave really say he's better looking than me?
Can we move on?
Your hair looks very nice.
Thank you very much. This time you will not be fooled. This is a list of teams that are resting their starters in Week 17. Don't tell us we did not warn you.
Yes, this is something to be very cautious about, because you see the Colts, the Chargers, the Patriots, the Bengals, the Saints, the Cardinals, and the Packers. The Cardinals really the one team you have to be careful about, because if the Vikings lose to the Giants earlier in the day Sunday, then the Cardinals still have something to play for, because they'll be playing at the same time as the Cowboys and the Eagles. And if the Cowboys win that game and the Cardinals win that game, then the Cardinals get the number 2 seed in the NFC. So that's something to keep in mind when setting your lineup with the Cardinals. But we expect the Vikings to win. We expect the Cardinals to rest their guys, the Packers to rest their guys, as well as all of the other teams on this list. Lauren, we saw what happened last week with the Colts and the Jets. They rested their players. Joseph Adai gave you good production, but Dallas Clark, Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, those guys really hurt a lot of people in their championship. If you're playing in your championship in Week 17, as we always will tell you, be cautious when setting your lineup. And the key to keep in mind is, and this is something that I've told everybody that I can advise on this subject, would you rather get, or who do you think is going to give you more production? Peyton Manning in a quarter or a half,
right? Or
another quarterback like a Jason Campbell for a full game?
That's what our message boards were saying. They were saying, like, you know, Drew Brees or Jason Campbell. Like, who do we go with? Because is a quarter of production. What's the answer to that?
Well, that's the thing you have to sort of judge is, can Tom Brady in a half give you more production than a Joe Flacco for a full game? It's something that only you can make that decision, because we don't know what's going to happen, because this is what teams this is what teams do in Week 17, and typically why we advise people to end their seasons in Week 16, because that's usually a safer way to go about your championship.
Guess who will not be resting? Big Ben, and Jamey thinks he's going to do big things, maybe channeling Week 15, perhaps?
I hope so. That'd be great. I don't know if we're going to see Week 15 type production, but I think you'll see him be in the 300-yard range, see him throw for a couple of touchdowns. Listen, when Big Ben is tested and the Steelers are tested, that's typically when he rises to the occasion. Go back to the Super Bowl last year. He needed to have a game-winning drive to lead the Steelers to a victory. Go back to Week 15, as Lauren mentioned. Steelers on a 5-game losing streak. He throws for 500 yards against a very tough Packers defense. I think you'll see Big Ben take advantage of a very porous Dolphins secondary, 2 rookie cornerbacks. They just lost another linebacker in Channing Crowder with a foot injury. You'll see Big Ben throw for a good production here. We like him, as you can tell by his projections. And as well as him, we like Santonio Holmes coming to South Florida, where he's from. He's from the West Palm Beach area, so he should do well with a lot of fans there. Hines Ward, if he plays, that'll do wonders for him as well. And Mike Wallace is a good sleeper. And Rashard Mendenhall should also do well. Steelers should have a chance to win this game.
What about Chad Ochocinco? He says, Darrelle Revis, you will not stop me. You say otherwise.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to keep in mind here with Darrelle Revis and Chad Ochocinco. Great back and forth on Twitter, by the way, so if you get a chance to check that out, I think you'll enjoy it. You're talking about 2 of the best players at their respective positions. Ochocinco's got a very nice touchdown streak at this point, but Darrelle Revis and his resume this year has just been unbelievably impressive. I mean, you talk about the receivers that he's shut down. Andre Johnson, Marcus Colston, Steve Smith of the Panthers, Roddy White, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens twice. I mean, you're talking about the best cover corner in the NFL, and Ochocinco is probably not going to play a full game. I know he's begging, he's pleading, he's asking Marvin Lewis, let me play in there as long as Revis is in there, because it's very rare that Ochocinco gets single coverage. But you know what? Revis is going to shut him down. I don't think you'll see Chad Ochocinco be worth starting this week. Again, he's a hard guy to rest, especially with the touchdown streak that he's on right now. But if Carson Palmer's not in there, even if Ochocinco maybe stays in the game, I'm not going to trust him this week. I think you could bench him.
I want to check out that Twitter war. Is it a war?
It's a friendly back and forth.
All right, starting at wide receiver. Calvin Johnson, even taking into account the quarterback situation.
Yeah, this is a scenario where quarterback doesn't matter, because we saw last week for Calvin Johnson, excuse me, got my CJs mixed up there. Calvin Johnson should do well, because you're looking at 7 catches, 96 yards last week, with the combination of Drew Stanton and Dante Culpepper. It looks like it's going to be Culpepper this week starting at quarterback, but I think that's really not going to have an impact. He had 8 catches for 133 yards. Calvin Johnson did in the first meeting with the Bears. He's done well against the Bears in his last 2 games against them, has a touchdown in the 2-game span, and I think you'll see him do well here based on what we saw the Vikings do against the Bears last week, and Charles Tillman not going to play in this game, so the Bears a little bit banged up. Roddy White coming off a fantastic game last week. He should do well. And then Michael Crabtree, somebody we always seem to talk about, but I think this week is a chance for him to finish the season playing well. I like his outlook for this week.
All right, what about Kenny Britt against Seattle? Because against San Diego, it wasn't so good, but this is a favorable matchup. Why are you sitting him?
It's a great matchup, and I'm glad you asked that question, because there's 2 reasons why I don't like Kenny Britt. First off, The last 3 games for Kenny Britt, Justin Gage has been back, and so it's another mouth to feed, another guy that Vince Young has to get the ball to. And let's keep in mind, Chris Johnson's chasing a record here. So when you talk about what the Titans have in store in this matchup, you're going to see probably Chris Johnson get in the upwards of 35 to maybe even 40 carries as he's trying to break Eric Dickerson's record. He's got a little over 200 yards to go, so they're going to give him every opportunity to try to reach that mark. So I think you'll see Vince Young probably struggle a little bit, even though he has a great matchup. It's hard to bench Vince Young going against Seattle. But Kenny Britt, I think you can afford to sit him. Again, he's probably not a guy that's gotten you to this point. He had a 3-game touchdown streak prior to the last 3 games, but again, that was with Justin Gage not in there. Derek Mason going to Oakland, tough matchup for him. He's probably going to face Nnamdi Asomugha, the second coming of Darrelle Revis, or vice versa. And then Dwayne Bowe, another guy's got a tough matchup with Champ Bailey.
All right, let's talk quarterbacks for a second. Jay Cutler, will he end this year on a high note? Will he not throw any interceptions? He's playing against the Lions. I need answers.
Yeah, saying that he may not throw an interception, that's like saying that Dave Richards better looking than me. I think you're talking about a scenario with Jay Cutler should finish the season strong. Fantastic game Monday night against the Vikings, as we know, 4 touchdowns, a game-winning pass with only 1 interception. And I think you'll see him come back against Detroit. He played well against them with 2 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in Week 4. Love the matchup for him. As we know, Detroit can't stop anybody. And if you're looking for a sleeper wide receiver this week, Devin Aromashodu. Fantastic matchup. Johnny Knox is probably not going to, or is not going to play in this game. Devin Hester is probably not going to play as well. And you're looking at Cutler should come out in this game and do fantastic things, along with Brett Favre and Alex Smith. You can't bench Brett Favre in a must-win game, and it could be his last regular season game. So we think Brett Favre will do well.
All right, here's a question we were talking about earlier. Joe Flacco. Do owners really have enough quarterbacks with Drew Brees and Peyton Manning sitting for much of the game to sit Joe Flacco? You say yes.
Well, I would probably start Flacco over those guys. That's a great point that you make, because if you can't afford to go with one of those other guys because you're nervous, then Joe Flacco is a serviceable replacement. But this isn't the best matchup for him. I know Oakland has struggled recently in terms of their pass defense, but you're talking about a scenario with Joe Flacco going across the country, which is never easy for teams to do. And we know about Donovan McNabb the last time that he went into Oakland, or the time that he went into Oakland this year. If you look at the list of sit quarterbacks that we have here, there's a guy on this list, Jason Campbell. He is the only quarterback to go into Oakland and throw for multiple touchdown passes. Flacco's been really bad on the road this year, struggling in terms of his touchdown production. I think he had 2 touchdowns last week, but he had minimal fantasy production. I just think that Flacco's, they're going to be very conservative. They're going to hand the ball off. You're going to see Ray Rice, Willis McGahee, maybe even LaRon McClain play well here. Again, Campbell going to San Diego. We know the Redskins aren't going to try very much in this game. And then Matt Castle, the last time that he faced Denver, 84 passing yards. He was pulled in that game. He's not going to do much better in the rematch.
Will Jerome Harrison do better? Because he is starting at running back for you. He might not do like Week 15 numbers, but he's the guy there. He's like all of the options combined into one. He has to be good for fantasy owners.
He basically is, and you probably said Jerome Harrison's name more in the last 3 weeks
than
you
have ever.
Anybody else over the course of the season. Jerome Harrison's got a fantastic matchup this week. I know Jacksonville, if you look at their numbers in terms of their run defense, it's pretty good for the course of the season, but they've fallen apart recently. Last week, the Patriots combined, their 3 running backs combined for 193 rushing yards. So Jacksonville, I know they're still trying to cling to their minimal playoff hopes. It's not going to happen this week. Cleveland actually has a chance to win, which our producer, Mike Friedman, will like, because he is rooting for Eric Mangini to keep his job. I think Jerome Harrison is going to give them a good opportunity to do that. 73 carries in his last 2 games, playing at an unbelievable level. As Lauren mentioned, you got to start him. You got to start Jonathan Stewart, because D'Angelo Williams probably not going to play, and this guy is playing unbelievable to close the season. And then Matt Forte. Best game of the year was against the Lions in Week 4, 121 rushing yards and a touchdown. He has a chance to duplicate that.
Our producer is the greatest, isn't he? Always has the mics ready to go for us. He's the best.
He's threatening me. I don't know.
What? Understand. All right, before we let you go, with no Brandon Jacobs, to me, I'm not a fantasy expert, but I would think Ahmad Bradshaw would do well, but he's sitting.
First of all, give yourself credit. You are a fantasy expert at this point. I think when you talk about Ahmad Bradshaw, what he has in store for this week, yes, no Brandon Jacobs. He is going to get more carries, but the Vikings need to win this game. They need to play better on defense than they have showed in the past few weeks. And even as bad as their secondary has struggled, their run defense has still been very good. They're going to do whatever they can to stop Ahmad Bradshaw. The running game for the Giants was non-existent last week against Carolina. I would sit Ahmad Bradshaw. Again, he's probably not a guy that's gotten you to this point, but he is one of those guys that could be a good replacement if you're missing some of the players that are resting, like a LaDainian Tomlinson, like a potentially a Beating Wells you see on this list, Joseph Adai, Ryan Grant, throw in all the names of the teams that could be resting guys, then Ahmad Bradshaw becomes a viable option. But I think you got to look at him more as a flex guy this week. I just don't love Ahmad Bradshaw's matchup, but I think if you look at what he's capable of doing, yes, he could play well. I think you should just sit him.
What's your New Year's resolution?
My New Year's resolution is to stop talking so much in the videos.
Mine is to watch fantasy football today. Yours should be too. On Sunday, it's the last one.
Yes. Before we go, though, I want to say thank you to Mike Friedman, to Matt Brodsky, to Aaron Weisberg for all the hard work they do.
And to Dave Richard.
And to Dave.
And Jamey.
Dave gets enough credit. But Lauren, you're the best host, and we appreciate all your hard work.
You are the best. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Good luck to you. We'll talk to you soon.